Have you ever wondered if what you're wearing, right now, is more than just a fashion choice? What if your outfit is not only reflecting your personality, but also inviting in something much deeper, something spiritual? What if behind the colors, prints, and logos, lies a hidden message that goes far beyond your wardrobe? Because fashion, contrary to what we've been told, isn't always just about self-expression. Sometimes, it's about spiritual transmission. The clothes we wear, they're more than fabric, more than trend, more than the latest drop or a cute outfit of the day. Every item you put on your body carries something, intention, meaning, and sometimes, even spiritual weight. Yes, spiritual weight. From the symbols sewn into a shirt, to the design of a logo on a hat, even the shapes and patterns printed on your hoodie, there are things we wear without realizing the energy we might be inviting into our space. The world today sells fashion as harmless self-expression. Wear whatever you want. Style is personal. It's just a vibe. But what if I told you that some things we put on our bodies can open spiritual doors, doors that were never meant to be opened? Let's pause and really think. Why do we keep seeing the same dark symbols showing up in high-end fashion and streetwear? Why are ancient occult icons now common on jewelry, hats, crop tops, and sneakers? Are these just edgy design choices? Coincidence? Aesthetic? Or is it deeper? Here's the truth no one talks about. The enemy doesn't always come wearing horns and a pitchfork. He comes disguised in things we admire. Trends, aesthetics, vibes, visuals that seem harmless, but carry hidden messages. He knows that most people won't knowingly invite darkness into their lives. So instead, he hides it, in plain sight. Through deception, through normalization, through repetition. And one of his easiest entry points? What we wear. When you put something on without understanding what it represents, you may unknowingly align yourself with a spiritual force that has nothing to do with truth, light, or love. This isn't new. In fact, it's ancient. Throughout human history, clothing has been used for spiritual communication. Warriors wore garments engraved with sigils for supernatural protection. High priests and tribal leaders adorned themselves in sacred colors and patterns believed to connect them with the divine. In cultures around the world, from Asia to Africa to the Americas, clothing has symbolized power, honor, and access to unseen realms. The ancients knew something we've forgotten. Clothing is not neutral. Symbols are not random. Because just as symbols can be used for good, for blessing, for protection, for reverence, they can also be used for evil, to manipulate, attract darkness, or open doors to demonic influence. Today, we're watching the same spiritual practices, repackaged in modern fashion. Look around. Symbols that once belonged to secret societies. Icons once buried in ancient manuscripts or ritual altars. Now they're printed on oversized sweatshirts and sold as luxury branding. The pentagram, once reserved for dark ceremonies, now sparkles on silver chains at pop-up shops. The all-seeing eye, once feared, now shows up in hoodies worn by teens. Even phrases that carry weight in demonic circles are now casually stamped across clothing. Sold to anyone who thinks it looks cool. It's subtle, it's stylish, and it's dangerous. Because the more we normalize these images, the less we recognize what they were really meant for. So the next time you pick up a shirt or snapback just because it looks fire, ask yourself, what spirit does this carry? Because not every trend is just a trend. And not every symbol is just style. Some things are stitched with deeper meaning than you could ever imagine. And the question is, do you know what you're wearing? Yellow Square, stay tuned. In the next segment, we'll break down specific symbols you're seeing in mainstream fashion, and the shocking spiritual roots behind them. Trust me, you'll never look at your closet the same way again. In the last part, we opened our eyes to the reality that not every symbol in fashion is just art. Some designs carry deep spiritual histories, and what you wear may align you with more than just a trend. But let's look even closer. Because it's not just obvious symbols. Some of what's woven into fashion today comes from darker places than most people ever realize. You've seen them before. The all-seeing eye, the inverted cross, symbols that show up on t-shirts, hoodies, sneakers, jewelry, even luxury runway fashion. But here's the truth. These are not just cool or creative designs. They are ancient spiritual marks, used for centuries in occult rituals, witchcraft, and demonic ceremonies. They weren't created for beauty. They were created for power, influence, control, manipulation. And yet, people wear them every day, without a second thought, without knowing what they truly mean, without realizing what they might be opening themselves up to. And it doesn't stop there. Some of the symbols we see today are far more subtle. They don't scream darkness, they whisper it. Ancient runes, once carved into ritual stones to summon specific spirits. Alchemical symbols, used in dark arts to manipulate elements and alter reality. Even certain animal prints and repetitive patterns that, in some traditions, were never about fashion, but about invoking primal forces or channeling ancestral spirits. You wouldn't recognize them unless you knew what to look for. But they're there, on hats, on bags, in logos, on jewelry, and many of them originate from spiritual systems meant to summon, manipulate, or invoke power, not from heaven, but from sources far from holy. When we wear these things, whether we mean to or not, we align ourselves with their purpose. You might be thinking, but I don't believe in that stuff. It's just a design to me. I just liked how it looked. But here's a question worth asking. Does the spiritual realm operate based on personal opinion, or spiritual law? If someone walks into fire, does it matter if they believe fire is hot? No. The effect doesn't depend on belief. It depends on truth, on law. And the same is true for what we wear. The same is true for what we unknowingly invite into our lives. So ask yourself, why is the world becoming so fascinated with darkness? Have you noticed it? The rise of dark themes isn't limited to one industry. It's everywhere. Music videos, movies, social media filters, streetwear drops, and yes, especially fashion. What once was hidden in the back rooms of secret societies, or locked away in the cryptic pages of esoteric books, is now printed across chest logos and snapped onto baseball caps. Symbols that once made people whisper now strut down runways to applause. And millions wear them, blindly, casually, innocently. But innocence doesn't protect you from influence. Some people still say, it's just a trend, just edgy design, just marketing. But here's the thing, the enemy doesn't deal in trends. He deals in deception. Look at what's being pushed. The pentagram, the inverted cross, the Eye of Horus, the sigils of old cults. These aren't accidents. These aren't just wild creativity from bored designers. These are intentional marks, drawn from the blueprints of ancient spiritual systems. Symbols of allegiance, symbols of summoning, symbols of spiritual compromise. They've been used in rituals for generations, and now they're being sewn into our clothes. Offered as fashion-forward or high concept. The world wants you to believe it's harmless. That it's just aesthetic, just art, just freedom, just style. But make no mistake, these symbols were never empty. They have always carried meaning. And the enemy has always worked to blur the line between what is sacred and what is sinister. He knows that if he can get people to play with darkness, even in ignorance, he's already won half the battle. So what does he do? He repackages the occult. He rebrands what was once feared. He wraps it up in rebellion, in coolness, in the illusion of freedom. He makes it look like power, makes it feel like individuality, makes it sound like self-expression. But in reality, it's an invitation, a silent one, a doorway left cracked open. And every time someone wears these symbols, believing it's just a graphic, just a trend, they unknowingly open that door a little wider. Coming up in the next segment, we'll take a closer look at the origins of some of these common symbols, what they meant then, and what they still mean now. You might be surprised by how far back this goes, and how much it still matters. We've seen how symbols rooted in darkness are being sewn into our clothes, marketed as harmless design, but carrying spiritual weight. But here's what most people don't realize: the widespread use of these symbols isn't random. It's not coincidence. It's deliberate. It's strategic. Have you ever stopped and truly wondered why the same occult symbols keep showing up again and again, especially in the world's most powerful fashion brands? Is it all just creativity? Just edgy inspiration? Just coincidence? Absolutely not. It's intentional. There is a reason these images keep surfacing in runways, designer lines, celebrity endorsements, and global fashion campaigns. These choices are not made blindly. They are calculated. The fashion world, especially high fashion, is filled with people who openly embrace spiritual darkness. And many don't even try to hide it. Some of the biggest names in the industry have publicly spoken about their involvement in mysticism, their interest in esoteric teachings, and even their participation in spiritual rituals. Not just creative inspiration, but spiritual practice. They've woven this belief system directly into their designs. And the more people wear it, the more it spreads. The more it spreads, the more it gets normalized. And the more it's normalized, the easier it is for the enemy to work in plain sight, without resistance. Because when something becomes fashion, we stop questioning what it really means. And let's be clear, it's not just pentagrams or inverted crosses anymore. Sometimes the spiritual influence is more subtle, harder to notice at first, but just as destructive. Have you noticed the rise in clothing filled with images of snakes, skulls, fire, and decay? Have you seen the glorification of violence, anarchy, death, and destruction in so-called artistic fashion pieces? Ask yourself, why is chaos so often celebrated in modern design? Why is rebellion constantly glorified? Why is death marketed as aesthetic? It's not by accident, because Scripture makes it clear. The enemy comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. And now, those very things are plastered across jackets, shirts, jewelry, and accessories, celebrated, styled, sold, wrapped in the language of freedom and self-expression. But the question is, whose expression is it really? See, the enemy doesn't show up waving a red flag with horns and a pitchfork. He's far more clever than that. He wraps deception in beauty. He hides darkness in creativity. He makes rebellion look like empowerment. He makes sin look attractive. And the moment we stop asking questions, the moment we let our guard down and say, it's just fashion, it's just a design, we've already opened the door. And that door, it wasn't meant to be opened. This isn't just about fashion. This is spiritual warfare in disguise. The enemy doesn't just want your style, he wants your soul. And if he can't get it by force, he'll get it through subtle agreement. If he can get you to celebrate what belongs to his kingdom, if he can get you to wear it, to represent it, to normalize it, then he's already planted his seed. Even if you don't believe it, even if you didn't mean to. That's how spiritual law works. And that's why we need to wake up. We need to stop letting the world define what's acceptable. We need to stop excusing darkness because it comes with a price tag or a celebrity endorsement. If something is rooted in evil, no matter how popular it is, it has no place in our lives. It doesn't matter how expensive the brand is. It doesn't matter how stylish the look is. If it's built on darkness, it cannot bring light into your life. We cannot claim to walk in truth while dressing ourselves in lies. We cannot say we belong to the light while wearing symbols that represent the opposite. We are called to be set apart. And that doesn't just start in our hearts. It starts with our choices, our voice, our influence, and yes, even our clothing. Because what we wear preaches, even when we don't say a word. Coming up in the next segment, we'll break down how to discern what's behind a trend, and what to do when fashion starts to compromise faith. What you wear is more spiritual than you think. Earlier, we talked about how darkness disguises itself in fashion, not as chaos, but as creativity. But here's the next layer. It's not just about symbols anymore. It's about influence, about normalizing a message. And it's happening on a global stage, more visible than ever before. Take a look around. Really look. Fashion today is no longer just about covering your body or expressing your taste. It's about shaping minds. It's about shifting culture. It's about redefining what's acceptable, one trend at a time. And if you pay attention, if you dare to look closely, you'll start to notice something deeply unsettling. The biggest names in fashion, the most powerful celebrities, the most followed influencers on earth, they aren't just selling clothes. They're pushing spiritual messages. And far too often, those messages are rooted not in light, but in darkness. This is not by accident. There is a reason why so many celebrities are constantly seen wearing symbols associated with the occult. There's a reason the all-seeing eye, the pentagram, the inverted cross, and other dark references show up in music videos, magazine covers, red carpets, and runway shows. Why is death so glorified in mainstream fashion? Why do designs keep returning to themes of rebellion, destruction, and chaos? It's not just edginess. It's not just shock value. It's spiritual influence, masked as cultural innovation. Here's something to understand. The fashion industry is one of the most influential machines on the planet. It shapes how people dress. It subtly reprograms how people think. It even affects what they begin to value about themselves and others. And behind all the glamour, the flashing runway lights, the curated Instagram photos, the elite designer collaborations, there's a system at work. And that system? It doesn't align with the heart of God. Ask yourself, why do celebrities gravitate toward clothes covered in demonic or occult symbols? Why are these messages so common across performances, campaigns, and interviews? Many of these public figures openly embrace mysticism. Some belong to secret societies. Others have spoken about participating in rituals that sound more like horror movies than anything in real life. And whether they realize it or not, they're being used to lead millions, yes, millions, into a place of acceptance. Not acceptance of truth, but acceptance of what should never have been accepted in the first place. You see, when fans see their favorite celebrity wearing a shirt with a demonic symbol, they don't question it. They don't research it. They don't wonder what it means. They simply assume, it's just a trend. It's just fashion. It's probably harmless. But let me ask you, why would the enemy show up in a terrifying form, when he can walk straight into your life wearing designer? Why would he scare you away from darkness, when he can make it look powerful, glamorous, influential, and rebellious? He doesn't need to chase people away. He just needs them to admire the wrong things. because people always imitate what they admire. And when public figures, those who dominate stages, screens, and social media feeds, start dressing in ways that mock God and celebrate sin, they're not just being edgy. They're sending a message to millions. They're saying, this is cool, this is normal, this is success. And millions of people, young, old, conscious or unaware, follow. They buy the same brands. They wear the same looks. They repeat the same messages, even if they don't know what those messages mean. But that's how influence works. It bypasses your logic. It targets your identity. And without realizing it, people open their hearts and homes to things they never meant to allow in. And here's the truth. It doesn't stop with celebrities. The designers themselves, the ones who shape entire collections, seasons, and global trends, many of them are part of this system, too. And that's no conspiracy. That's no stretch of the imagination. Just look at the patterns. The repeated use of esoteric symbols. The obsession with death culture. Spiritism, rebellion, and inverted morality. What looks like creativity is often carefully layered messaging. And if we're not alert, we'll fall for it. We'll wear it. We'll repeat it. We'll defend it. All without knowing what we've given permission to. In the next segment, we'll examine the cost of that permission, how what you wear doesn't just express your style, but may influence your spirit more than you ever intended. Fashion isn't just about the outer garment. It's about the inner agreement. We've talked about how designers and celebrities are unwittingly, or intentionally, becoming media outlets for darkness through fashion. But if you think it's just about iconic style, think again, because when fashion takes on a belief system, we're not facing a trend, we're facing a spiritual battle. Have you ever stopped to notice how often religious mockery shows up in fashion? Have you seen the collections featuring upside-down crosses, twisted versions of sacred images, or direct references to demonic figures? They're not hiding it. In fact, they're making it mainstream. Shirts, jackets, jewelry, covered in blasphemy, sold with a smile. And people, they buy it, willingly. Some spend hundreds, even thousands of dollars to wrap themselves in symbols that openly represent everything God stands against. This isn't just about what looks good. This is spiritual warfare disguised as streetwear. Because the enemy understands something most people overlook. What you wear says a lot about what you align with. This truth isn't new. In the Bible, clothing was deeply tied to identity and purpose. The priests wore specific garments, set apart for holiness. The prophets wore clothing that marked their call. Even Jesus' robe carried such weight that Roman soldiers cast lots to own it. Why? Because clothing has always been more than material. It's symbolic, it's sacred, it speaks. And today, whether people believe it or not, fashion continues to speak. Loudly and clearly. But the voice behind it? Too often, it's not the voice of God. It's a different voice, a darker one. And it's pushing an agenda, one trend, one logo, one symbol at a time. But here's the trick, the world wants you to dismiss all of this. They'll say, it's just fashion, you're being too deep, it doesn't mean anything. But let me ask you, when did we become so numb to darkness? When did mocking God become trendy? When did we start embracing what we once rejected? That's how the enemy works. He rarely kicks down the door. He creeps in, a little compromise here, a small symbol there, an edgy campaign you scroll past without thinking. Until suddenly, what once shocked you now entertains you. And what once convicted you, now clothes you. But Scripture is clear, we are called to be different. We're not meant to blend in. We're meant to stand apart, to carry discernment in everything. Even in what we wear. We cannot afford to blindly follow trends just because celebrities or influencers told us it's cool. Because this isn't about fashion. It's about allegiance. At the end of the day, the question isn't, is this in style? The question is, who does this glorify? If what we wear gives honor to darkness, to rebellion, to mockery, then are we really walking in the light? Most people never pause to consider this. They see something they like. They buy it. They wear it. That's it. No questions asked. But what if I told you that some things carry more than just fabric and stitching? What if that shirt wasn't just a design, but a declaration? What if that accessory wasn't just fashion, but a symbol of spiritual alignment? Because the enemy isn't after your closet. He's after your agreement. He wants you to wear what represents him. Even if you don't mean to. Even if you say, it's just clothes. Because that's how influence works. It doesn't need your full attention. It just needs your silent permission. In the next segment, we'll break down how to discern what's behind the brands we support, and why spiritual awareness must become part of every believer's daily life. The enemy is subtle, but the truth is clear, if you're willing to look. While the world still celebrates and praises fashion as a form of free expression, few people realize that what we wear is not only physical but also carries invisible baggage, something very deep and spiritual. Have you ever stopped to wonder what kind of baggage we carry in the clothes we wear? Not just physical baggage, but spiritual baggage? Because here's the truth, the enemy doesn't always hide in the shadows. Sometimes, he hides in plain sight. He knows that if he can get people to accept things without questioning them, to slip on a jacket or hang a symbol around their neck without once asking what it really means, then he's already halfway to winning their soul. And one of the most effective tools he uses? Fashion. There are entire cultures, ancient and modern, that use clothing, jewelry, and accessories as more than just decoration. They use them in spiritual rituals, to summon spirits, to dedicate a person to a deity, or to shift energy toward a spiritual purpose. Some of these garments were never intended to be seen outside of ritual space. But over time, as their sacred meaning faded from collective memory, the fashion world picked them up and turned them into trends. Yet the spiritual realm never forgets. A symbol's origin doesn't disappear just because it's mass-produced and hung on a hanger at the mall. Spirits don't leave just because someone says, "It doesn't mean that to me." If something was created for a dark or sacred purpose, that intention lingers. It holds spiritual residue, and whether or not we acknowledge it, that impact is very real. Think about it. Have you noticed how certain styles seem to explode overnight? You see them on celebrities, in runway shows, on influencer feeds, and everyone starts mimicking them. But rarely do people pause to ask, where did this trend come from? Why this symbol? Why now? If you trace the origins of some of these designs, you'll often find they were birthed in ancient ceremonies, some of them never meant to be diluted, commodified, or turned into casual wear. Take jewelry, for example. There are necklaces, rings, earrings sold as boho, edgy, or tribal, inscribed with markings most people can't even read. Some are pagan protection spells. Others are symbols to attract certain energies, or charms to align with specific deities. And they're worn like nothing more than a fashion statement. But what if those markings weren't neutral? What if they actually meant something in the spiritual realm? It goes even deeper than symbols. Certain fabrics, color combinations, and woven patterns also originate from deeply spiritual practices. Some were created to mark sacred ceremonies. Others were used in initiations, or even to declare allegiance to specific spiritual entities. And yet today, they're printed on t-shirts and designer scarves, stripped of context and sold to the masses. Most consumers have no idea what they're wearing. But the spiritual world does. Because intention never disappears. The energy embedded into these items can remain, and when someone chooses to wear them, they may unintentionally be inviting that energy into their lives. This is not about paranoia. It's about awareness. You don't have to live in fear. But you do have to ask better questions. Where did this come from? What was it originally made for? Am I aligning myself with something I don't understand? Because fashion isn't just about what covers your body. It's about what cloaks your spirit. And as we'll explore in the next part, once you understand the spiritual laws behind symbols and garments, you'll never look at clothing the same way again. To be continued. In the previous section, we discussed how many symbols and styles in modern fashion are inspired by mystical rituals and sacred choices. But when we dig deeper, we realize that it is not just about origins or symbols, but how the enemy is hidden in the things we wear. Many people today have no clue what they're wrapping themselves in. It seems innocent, a graphic tee, a cool print, a trendy design, but even certain brand collaborations are tied to dark spiritual influences. Some designers openly admit that their creative process was inspired by mysticism, by occult rituals, or esoteric practices. They speak candidly in interviews, talk about energies, cosmic forces, and how their collections channel something beyond the physical. And yet, millions still rush to buy these clothes, never stopping to wonder if they might be literally covering themselves in something never meant to be worn casually. You might be thinking, I didn't participate in any ritual. I just bought the shirt. But let me ask you this. If you knew an object was cursed, would you bring it into your home? If a necklace had been used in a demonic ceremony, would you wear it around your neck? Because here's the sobering truth. Spiritual influence doesn't require your belief to be real. Just like poison remains deadly whether or not you acknowledge its danger. A spiritually tainted object holds weight, even if you're oblivious to it. This is why discernment matters. The Bible repeatedly warns us to be vigilant, to test the spirits, and to avoid even the appearance of evil. And yet today, many walk around with garments woven with intentional darkness, unaware of what they carry. The enemy doesn't need you to worship him openly. He doesn't need you to recite incantations or kneel before him. He just needs you to be careless, to stop asking questions, to let your guard down, to care more about style than about spiritual protection. And if he can get you to wear something meant to invite darkness, then he's already slipped into your life, unnoticed. This isn't about fear. It's about wisdom, about being awake. Because the moment you start paying attention, the moment you start asking questions, you begin to see it all for what it truly is. A world designed to lead hearts away from God. One influencer at a time. One image at a time. One garment at a time. And when your eyes are open to that truth, it doesn't just change what you wear. It changes what you allow into your life. In the next part, we uncover a critical truth most people overlook: nothing in this world is truly neutral. Stay with me. In the previous part, we asked the question, if what you wear was born from a dark ritual, would you dare wear it? But the story does not end there. Because in this world, nothing is random. Not every design is just aesthetic. Not every symbol is just for beauty. Nothing in this world is truly random. The things we see, the things we hear, the things we wear, they all carry meaning. And yet, we've been trained not to ask. We've been conditioned to scroll, consume, follow trends, and never stop to wonder why certain things are everywhere. So let me ask you, why do so many brands, from luxury labels to fast fashion, keep using the same symbols over and over again? Why do we constantly see the all-seeing eye, the inverted cross, snakes, skulls, and sacred geometry. Ancient glyphs and markings once hidden in secret rituals. Is it truly just art? Or is it strategy? Because the enemy doesn't work through chaos, he works through structure. Through repetition. Through normalization. If he can surround us with darkness long enough, dress it up in beauty, glamour, and creativity, we eventually stop noticing it altogether. Fashion has become one of his most effective tools. Because when something dark becomes desirable, the door opens. When people start wearing what once made them uncomfortable, and no longer flinch at what once felt sacred or profane, something deeper has shifted. Their spirit is no longer resisting. They're participating, even if they don't realize it. Look at the biggest fashion houses in the world. Their logos? Often more than just clever branding. Some are modeled after ancient sigils from occult texts, numerological codes tied to dark spiritual meaning, symbols used in rituals, long before they became cool. These aren't accidents. They're not just edgy designs. They are messages, declarations, agreements. Some designers have even admitted this. They speak about being inspired by hidden knowledge, about channeling forces through their creative work. They blur the line between art and invocation, and they're proud of it. And the masses? We wear these things, post about them, promote them, unaware that we may be aligning ourselves with things that were never neutral. But it's just fashion, you might say. It's just a logo. Let me tell you something. Would you wear a noose if it looked stylish? Would you tattoo poison on your chest if the font was pretty? Would you walk into a room full of smoke and say, "It's probably fine," just because others are doing it? Spiritual laws are not governed by personal belief. Just like gravity doesn't stop working because you don't believe in it. Darkness doesn't become harmless because you call it art. This is why we must wake up. This is why discernment is not optional in this generation. Because the enemy doesn't need you to be evil. He just needs you to be indifferent. To be passive. To be so distracted by trends that you stop protecting your soul. He doesn't demand your worship. He just wants your silence. So as we begin to close this message, ask yourself, what am I putting on every day? What does it represent? And what am I letting into my life through it? This isn't about guilt or fear, it's about clarity. About choosing light when the world is covered in shadows. About refusing to wear darkness like it's fashion. Because what we wear isn't just fabric. It's alignment. It's agreement. It's either a cloak of compromise or a declaration of conviction. In the next part, we'll uncover how to reclaim your wardrobe and your spirit from the influences you never meant to welcome. You don't want to miss what's coming. In the previous section, we saw clearly that fashion is not just about what to wear, but also about who you are wearing it for. A world where nothing is neutral, and everything sends a message, whether we realize it or not. The spiritual realm doesn't operate on opinion. It doesn't bend to personal belief. It runs on truth. And truth doesn't change just because we choose to ignore it. If a logo was birthed in rebellion, crafted with the intent to honor something unholy, then wearing it, whether you know it or not, carries that weight. Think of it this way. If a glass of water was poisoned, would you still drink it just because someone told you it looked refreshing? No? Then why do we cover ourselves in things created to glorify rebellion, darkness, or even blasphemy, simply because someone told us it looked cool? The Bible isn't silent about this. We're told to avoid even the appearance of evil, to guard our hearts diligently, to remain sober and alert, because our enemy is always prowling, looking for an opening. And what easier opening than your own skin? The very thing you wear like a second layer? Here's the part most people miss. When you put something on your body, you're making a statement, whether you speak it or not. You are aligning yourself, visually and spiritually, with something. The enemy knows this. He doesn't need your worship. He just needs your silence. He needs your complacency. He needs you to stop paying attention, to believe it's just fashion. Just a design, just a logo. Because the less you question, the more room he has to plant, and grow, and spread. His ultimate goal? To normalize darkness. To make demonic imagery feel so common, so non-threatening, that we stop seeing it as what it is. We wear it. We flaunt it. We internalize it. We begin to reflect what we once would have rejected. But you and I, we are not called to blend in. We are called to stand apart, to walk in light, to be watchful, to ask, who benefits from this? Who gets glorified when I wear this? This goes deeper than clothing. Because eventually, if we don't start waking up, we'll find ourselves walking around wearing the enemy's message, stitched into our clothes, stitched into our hearts. There was a time when modesty and dignity were prized, when how someone dressed was a reflection of their values, their inner character, their reverence, not just their aesthetic. But today, it's almost the opposite. Look around. The fashion industry now does everything it can to strip away dignity, celebrate rebellion, push boundaries until nothing feels sacred, blur the line between style and sin. Designers push further with every season. Brands glorify what used to be hidden, and what was once shocking is now just standard. Ask yourself, when did we become numb to darkness? When did blasphemy become chic? When did mockery become art? The shift has been slow, strategic, and effective. And unless we begin to push back, not with anger, but with awareness, we risk being swept away in a current that was never meant to carry us. This is not about fear. It's about discernment. It's about identity. It's about ownership of your own spiritual space. Because if the clothes you wear are preaching a message, let it be one of truth. Let it reflect light, not shadows. In the final part of this series, we're going to explore, what do we do now? How do we move forward with wisdom, not fear? How do we reclaim our choices, one garment at a time? Stay with me. You won't want to miss the conclusion. In the previous section, we talked about how the world of fashion changes not just trends but mindsets. One image at a time, one icon at a time. And now, we're going deeper, where clothes are no longer a means of self-expression, they're a spiritual battlefield. Clothing has gone from being a symbol of honor and dignity to becoming a tool of temptation. A visual lure used to glorify lust rather than godliness. And the enemy? He's been behind it the whole time. He knows exactly what he's doing. If he can distort the way people see themselves, if he can whisper the lie that your worth is in how much you expose, not who you are, he's already won part of the battle. What God designed as beautiful and pure, the enemy perverts. He twists it into something that distracts, degrades, and diminishes. And he does it so subtly. Most people never realize they've bought into a lie. The world celebrates clothing that leaves nothing to the imagination. Turn on a screen, walk into a store, scroll social media. What do you see? Advertisements that glorify everything the Bible warns us against. Lust is celebrated. Sensuality is commodified. And no one realizes that what we wear shapes more than how others see us. It shapes the spiritual atmosphere around us. Because the enemy doesn't just tempt with words. He tempts with images, with shapes, silhouettes, textures. He tempts with how people present themselves, not just to others, but before God. This isn't just about causing others to stumble. This is about the spiritual condition of the person wearing it. When someone dresses to exalt lust, to invite seductive attention, they are unknowingly aligning themselves with a spirit not from God. And Scripture is crystal clear on this. It warns us against immodesty, against the spirit of seduction, against using our bodies or appearance to seek validation. Yet the world has flipped the narrative. Now, modesty is mocked, dignity is dismissed. We're told confidence comes from revealing more, not protecting what's sacred. The enemy has turned purity into shame, and exhibition into empowerment. He's not just changing fashion, he's changing mindsets, convincing young men and women that value equals visibility, that worth equals attention, that if you aren't flaunting, you're failing. But God never measures worth that way. And once this cultural lie takes root, it becomes a stronghold, hard to uproot, easy to justify. But the truth still stands. We are called to be set apart, to walk in dignity, in wisdom, in reverence, because in the kingdom of God, your identity is never tied to what you expose, but to who you belong to. In the next section, we'll talk about what it means to reclaim our spiritual identity, one choice at a time. In the previous part, we talked about how modern fashion is distorting and masking the concept of value, causing young people to lose their sacred identity through every item they wear. Now, let's go deeper into the subtle influence of popular culture and the contagious power of false role models. Think about how fast it happens. One celebrity posts a photo in something provocative, and suddenly, it's everywhere. One influencer steps out in an outfit that pushes the limit, and before the week is out, it's a trend. Millions follow. No questions asked. Nobody pauses to ask, does what I wear align with my values, my faith, my purpose? Instead, people fall in line, afraid of being left out, afraid of being called too strict, too boring, or too religious. But here's the truth. Standing for righteousness has never been about popularity. Modesty is not weakness. Dignity is not oppression. Choosing to reflect God in what you wear is not outdated, it's powerful. It's spiritual strength clothed in fabric. This isn't about following a checklist or enforcing a dress code. It's about a deeper question. What does what I wear say about who I serve? In Scripture, God's people were marked, not just by their actions, but by their appearance. The priests dressed differently. The prophets dressed with purpose. Even Jesus wore a robe that carried such weight in meaning. Roman soldiers gambled for it. Clothing has always communicated something more. And today, what we wear still speaks. It tells the world where our allegiance lies. It tells heaven what we stand for. It even signals to the spiritual realm what spirit we are in agreement with. So we have to ask, are we wearing the image of God? Or the agenda of a world running from Him? The enemy will keep moving the boundary line. Each season, he will push a little further, normalizing what once made us pause, celebrating what once convicted us, silencing the voice inside that says, this isn't who I'm called to be. But we don't have to follow. We are not slaves to trends. We are not obligated to fit in. We don't need the world's validation when we already carry heaven's identity. So yes, we can choose wisdom. We can dress with purpose. We can cover what is sacred, not in shame, but in reverence, because we were never meant to blend in. We were meant to stand out. And when we do, when we choose modesty, dignity, and divine purpose, we don't just change how we look. We shift the atmosphere around us. We send a message that holiness still matters, that purity still has power, that being set apart is still beautiful. And the world, whether it realizes it or not, takes notice. So if you've made it to the end of this message, maybe it's not by accident. Maybe your heart is already stirring, sensing that something has to change. Because the truth is, we can't always control what the world promotes, but we can control what we participate in. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is say no to what everyone else calls normal. Say no to the enemy's version of beauty. Say no to the lies about your worth. Say no to trends that pull you away from the presence of God. And instead, say yes. Yes to truth. Yes to purpose. Yes to walking in a way that honors the God who created you for more. Every choice matters, even the ones you make in front of your closet. Because you're not just dressing a body, you're clothing a calling. If this message stirred something in you, if it made you think twice about what you wear and why, then you're not alone. And if you want more content like this, messages that go deep, speak truth, and challenge the culture, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Turn on notifications so you never miss a video. And share this message with someone who needs to hear it. Because this isn't just about fashion. This is about freedom. And together, we're building a generation that dresses not for attention, but for assignment. Thank you for watching. Stay bold, stay set apart, and I'll see you in the next video.